What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about PlayStation's year of 2023. So I just did this with Xbox, and I thought I would do it, obviously, with PlayStation as well. And big years for both for kind of different reasons. PlayStation's, I would argue, is more about the potential for the future and the quality versus quantity, not comparing it to Xbox, just literally talking about not too much coming out, but you hope for immense quality to those games. That's what I'm talking about. As I said in the Xbox video, this is not meant or even directed or anything at trying to compare the two. I'm not going to do that. I'm not picking sides. This is not a console warriors video. This is me talking about things that I'm excited about. And so for PlayStation, I would say we could probably break this up into two different kind of segments. Number one would be the pretty big games that I would say are releasing pretty consistently, like at least they're trying to do it consistently throughout the year. And then part two is the excitement / announcements for the future. So let's talk about like literally what we are going to see in our hands. Actually, we can actually take hold of them in 2023. So you start off the year with Forspoken, and that's gonna be an interesting one. It is, because it could go either way. I think it's gonna go right down the middle, but it could be a really surprisingly good game. It could be a really bad game. We'll see how it actually goes. But you start off the year extremely quick with a game like that. Then really, you have like the Hogwarts Legacy PlayStation marketing exclusivity. They have those things here and there, right? And it's important, I guess, to throw that out there. I can't focus on it, or I won't focus on it all that much, but you do have something like that. Then you really get to the PlayStation VR. So they're kind of tackling different markets in 2023, and I think that's going to really speed up, let's say, and elevate in probably 2024 and beyond, right? This is the year that we may see one of the free-to-play live service. There's 10 of them in development. They got the mobile division, right? Mobile games coming. I don't know how much of that stuff we see. In fact, I think in terms of being able to play it, we get to play extremely little. We may start to see it in terms of announcements, but again, that's for the other thing. But for, again, trying to dominate or trying to do these different markets, you have the PSVR 2. So that comes out, obviously, middle-ish of February, and a boatload of games for that, right? You could maybe even argue that part of the reason strategically why it's been quiet from the PlayStation exclusive side of, releases is because they're focusing, they're going head on 30 plus games at launch for PSVR 2, all that stuff. So I wish it all the best. I don't know if I myself am going to get the PSVR 2 at launch. Actually, the first PSVR I got about a month later. So maybe I'll just follow my own history and get it in March instead of February. But I do wish it the best, and I think it's going to be awesome. I'm really impressed by the tech. I like VR generally, so I will eventually pick it up. It's just, the wallets are a little strained nowadays, and especially in 2023. So you got that. Then you have Final Fantasy 16. That's really one of the big ones. Really, you could argue this year for PlayStation is kind of dominated, or it's going to rely on, in terms of, again, having games in your hand, on two games, Final Fantasy 16 and Spider-Man 2. Now, you're going to have things like potentially Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. If that sneaks in, much like actually I've said, this is the only comparison I'll make, with Hellblade 2 for Microsoft, right? If Hellblade 2 can kind of sneak into the year, November, December, that's just an extra thing Microsoft has that elevates its year. Same thing for, again, I'm not going to compare them, but same thing generally for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. If that sneaks in into December, and that's the only month it possibly can, right? It's either going to be December or it's going to be early 2024. So if it can sneak into this year, that is, I would easily qualify it as a massive thing. Beyond that, you really are left with Spider-Man and you're left with Final Fantasy. Now, you'll have like The Last of Us Part 1 coming to PC, right? You got those kind of things, and again, partnerships of sorts, but for the most part, you're relying on Final Fantasy 16, which I do think is going to be a phenomenal game. I really am excited for it. And we have that. And then you get into the fall and you have your behemoth. You have your Spider-Man 2, and that's going to be massive. I think that's a pretty safe bet that, well, number one, it sells. Number two, it sells PS5s. And number three, that it's a a very well above average game, or very, very great game, let's say. Obviously, we'll talk more about Spider-Man 2 as we get closer. So that's a look at the things that are coming. But another, and I really do mean this, another side of PlayStation this year, and this may sound like a kind of like a cop-out thing, but again, I said similar stuff for Microsoft, at least I'm being even, is this is a year of looking towards the future. Primarily, I would argue more with PlayStation, although you can make the argument for both. So, because you don't have too much coming out this year, and you also start to think, you say, okay, well, what is this team making? Or, well, this studio has 2 different teams in it. What are both of them making, right? There's a lot of that when it comes to PlayStation, right? Now, you got like third-party stuff like Silent Hill 2 Remake that would most likely be coming in 2023, right? I don't want to say it like definitively, although it seems pretty likely that Silent Hill 2 remakes make it. But the things that we don't know also, I would say, excites me almost as much as the things that are coming out. Because when it boils down to it, Final Fantasy and Spider-Man I'm very excited for, but what you could get me excited for in a PlayStation showcase, that excites me as well, right? And again, there's a lot you can do. You can start to talk about mobile games. You can start to talk about live service games, obviously. Even like The Last of Us multiplayer, I do think is one of those 10. I think the Twisted Metal game is one of those 10. Oh, by the way, you got the TV shows, right? You got The Last of Us show, and also the Twisted Metal show, I believe, is supposed to come out in 2023. Now, I laugh a little bit, but I'm actually kind of excited for the Twisted Metal show. I like a lot of the actors that are in it, so including Nev Campbell, one of the personal favorites. So I'm kind of pumped for it. And we know that there's going to be a game kind of to go along with it. So could we see a Twisted, in my opinion, I think it'll be a free-to-play live service game. Whether that'll work or not, I don't know. But could we see that this year? I think it's possible. There's a lot of stuff that may even release in this calendar year for PlayStation that we don't actually know about yet, right? Third-party deals, just exclusives of theirs, or then games that are coming out in 2024. Hey, where's Pragmata, right? Games like that. So, I'm not being very specific, but that's kind of the nature of the beast when it comes to talking about a PlayStation showcase where you announce 12 new games, you show off 6 that are already coming that we already know. I mean, that's kind of just what happens with these showcases. I think there's plenty of stuff where 2024, 2025, you're going to have maybe a big Naughty Dog game, or maybe the other game from Sony Santa Monica comes out in 2024, or hey, Ben Studio, makers of Days Gone, their game that they've been working on for a little while now. When do we start to see that? Ghost of Tsushima 2, you know what I mean? Could we, for the love of God, get some sort of older time games back? I will never stop. Can we get Sly Cooper? Can we get a Resistance remastered collection? Can we get Infamous back? Like, yes, some of these are pipe dreams. Some of these are more realistic than others. But the general point is you can show a lot in a PlayStation showcase. And basically, this is just another petition for it. So in terms of what we get in our hands, it's a quiet year. There's not as many things for PlayStation as you could argue in years past. And even at the top level, you can maybe argue it's maybe similar to this past year. Like, really, what were the 2 big ones? God of War Ragnarok and Horizon. There was more. There was Sifu and things like that. But those were the 2, let's say, behemoths for PlayStation. Or you could even say maybe The Last was Part 1, right? I guess it's just the ones that I'm thinking of right away. But when you think of this year, I guess, that we're in, Spider-Man 2, Final Fantasy. Those are similar. I mean, Spider-Man 2 maybe actually outsells both Horizon and God of War Ragnarok, and then is Final Fantasy bigger than Horizon, right? So somewhat kind of slide them into their place. But I also think a big part of this year is getting us ready for what's to come, whether it works or not, how these live service games work, and then starting to show some of the other games that your own companies are working on that we know they're working on. We just haven't seen them yet. And of course, third-party deals that I'm sure they have dozens of. We already know they have some of them, and I'm sure they have many more that they're purposely not announcing to not try to show that off with this Activision Blizzard thing. So I'm sure there's a lot behind the scenes that they're not talking about, and hopefully this year we get some of it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.